Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Got some bummer news a few minutes ago regarding what I was looking forward to for tomorrow, which is opening day of baseball, because now they've already postponed the Yankees Red Sox at Yankee Stadium because apparently the weather forecast is for heavy rain. So they're moving it to Friday. Hopefully, I would assume that means the weather will be clear on Friday. But the beginning of baseball season will be delayed one day. But we'll start with
I saw a report on that, Mike, before Russ gets going. And the guy was pointing out that he had talked to someone from the Yankees, and they said, well, we were doomed either way. He said if we waited and let it rain, we would have been and allowed everyone to come down. We would have been accused of making people want to take in the beer and the revenue thing. And then if we do it too early, people are going to be mad. What if it ends up being a nice day tomorrow and everything? So we waited, and we decided to go that if we called it off early, that would be the less.
Lesser of two evils. Yeah, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, that's exactly. He said, it's terrible that it comes down to that, but that's what it was. So,
no, that's fair.
All right,
so let's talk about this op-ed from the New York Times about baseball. I don't know the writer, so I'm not going to say anything about him other than this idea that the government should run Major League Baseball, should basically buy Major League Baseball. They should run it. They would make the prices lower for tickets. They would make the salaries lower. And all I can think about is, I don't know, Amtrak, the post office, and how this is a horrifically bad idea and why the New York Times even put it up.
Well, it's because it's the New York Times. They're the proponents of government-run healthcare. They're proponents of government-owned professional sports and a communist philosophy in terms of every player should make the same amount.
No, they're not saying that, Mike. Let's not.
I mean, what a load of crap. I mean, my God. But anyway, that's me.
But I just think it's a little silly, Kev, because and the writer wrote, hey, we'll get let's keep our national pastime, and it's like you can't write about baseball and say national pastime. They haven't been a national pastime in like 20 years.
The national pastime, Kev, is football now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Although there is still a romance with baseball. Baseball is still the most romantic sport in terms of it's the slow pace of it, and it's in the summer. Oftentimes, especially if you live in Green Bay, you're trudging through the snow and you get to a football game, and so I think there's still
one horse open sleigh.
Although Mike bitches about sitting in the sun for baseball games, but that's my.
Yeah, that might fall into the category of you and pants. For me, like,
it was 90, Russ. It was 90.
Yeah, but I mean,
what are you expecting?
You don't go to a ball game expecting to be cold. Like, to me,
Right.
I want to sit in the shade. That's all. I want to sit in the shade.
Yeah.
My delicate white skin. It's like, I can't handle it.
Well, just to and I'm only going to go 22 seconds on politics here. As a guy who's gotten now has Medicare, which I have, and I had no idea. I've heard so much complaining about it through the years that I thought, oh boy, it is the best health care I've ever had in my entire life. I worked my entire life. And my health care got worse and worse as we went along.
Right.
And since I got my Medicare, I've been to the doctor many times, and they essentially have paid for everything, especially for things that like testing and all that, and my prescriptions. Like, I've heard all these things about, oh my God, the prescriptions and everything. I pay $40 a month for my prescription thing. All of my prescriptions have been either free or $1.
Wow.
Like, it's like the greatest thing in the world. Like, I told my wife, I never would have anticipated that this government, system, and I know some people have had problems with it, and I think part of the issue too, it's difficult in one respect to navigate unless you're computer savvy.
I can explain my bitterness in 3 sentences in terms of that situation. I lost my job at Bank of America after working there for 16 years because when Obamacare was implemented, they decided to move my job from a state where they were paying, where I was employed 40 hours a week and would have qualified for healthcare, to a state that they transferred the job, hired people at 30 hours a week, and they qualified for Obamacare. They had to pay. And when I looked into the bronze plan for Obamacare, I couldn't afford it. So I had to go without insurance.
You've told that story before, but I have a friend, in fact, this person as well, and they lost their job and they got Obamacare for $95 a month because they were unemployed.
I'll have to talk to them because when I investigated it, it was $500 a month. But anyway.
Well, that can't be true because I had to look for Obamacare and it was much later than you. And my thing was $400 a month, and that was years after yours.
So, okay, Russ, did you want to talk about the other thing that?
We'll bring it up real quick because Ken might have something to say about it. So the Masters is getting ready to begin, and there's 2 things going on with the Masters. The first one is Tiger Woods, who legitimately may not be able to walk the course, is doing his best, and CBS, I guess, is probably who has it, are doing their best to make sure you watch at least the first 6, 7, 8 holes that Tiger does before he has to retire from this tournament, so you could at least watch him and be happy that you watched Tiger. And then Phil Mickelson is really being ostracized by the PGA because he spoke out a bit about the whole situation with, and I forget what country it is, Mike.
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, thanks. And not to get into the politics of that, but just to say, hey, he doesn't like it. He didn't think it was good that the PGA should do it, and he has lost every one of his sponsors. So he's not playing because he doesn't have a sponsor, and really nobody had his back. And even on radio here in Philly, they were ripping Phil Mickelson, and I think he's principled. Like, I have no problem with what Phil Mickelson said in a book. Well, it's not even like he said it, in a press conference.
Let's tackle the Tiger thing first. Okay, because I have never seen a more blatant whore job in my life by a television network than CBS pumping up Tiger in terms, and of course that's what all they do. Like, everybody's going to watch the first round. Oh, his tee time is 10:30 on Thursday. Yeah, by 10:45, he may be out of the tournament. But everybody's got it. It's appointment television. We got to watch Tiger. I mean,
but why are they doing that, Mike?
Why?
Yeah. Can I have a shot at this? Because that just outrages me to hear you speak like that. This is what sports is all about. Exactly. I mean, I don't know why you watch sports, because it basically infuriates you at all times over the craziest things.
Oh, the funny thing
is, are you bothered that they hyped the Super Bowl?
No.
Are you bothered that they hyped the World Series? This is the Masters, and this is Tiger Woods. Before Tiger Woods, or do you need to speak again? Go ahead.
No. The funny thing is, like, I'm a Mickelson fan.
It doesn't matter.
No. Yes, it does matter.
No,
it does matter.
Tiger Woods is Dwayne Gretzky. He transcends the sport.
Oh, there you go. There you go. There's the reason why I hate him, because I hate Wayne Gretzky.
Well, then again, I think we can leave it there.
I just can't understand the philosophy of, because I like this person, I have to hate that person. Well, I just don't. I can't even think in those terms.
This is my issue. Tiger Woods can basically do anything in his professional and personal career, and he's an untouchable.
Yes,
but it should not be that way.
But that's how it is.
You don't think Tiger Woods has been criticized?
No, you don't think he's taking his fair share of beatings?
He's still on Mount Olympus when it comes to most golf.
When it comes to golf.
He's the Beatles. Yeah. He's Wayne Gretzky. He's Taylor Swift. He's the best of all.
Don't slam Taylor Swift with that.
I didn't really care much about golf before Tiger Woods came along.
Yeah, a lot.
And I love sports. Like, I just everything about it. I love. I'm not bothered. I don't care if they hype it. I don't pay any attention to it. I just know that when Tiger started playing, I got interested, and when he's in a tournament, I want to watch. Like, go ahead again, Mike.
All I know, Kev, is I listen to people who put Tiger's run for the Masters in 2019, I heard it was James Duthie from TSN. This was like a religious experience, like watching Tiger walk the course. I mean, oh my God. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
So does it hurt you personally that someone else might have found some enjoyment out of that, or
it doesn't matter if you get it.
I would like once in my lifetime to have an experience like that. It just never happened.
No, the reality is you have to change a lot about yourself to have that experience, Mike. But the reality of the whole thing is it doesn't matter if you get it. Like millions, sure it does. It doesn't matter if you like this song. If millions of people get it and millions of people like the song,
no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If maybe I'm too self-centered. If I don't like,
you are.
Yes. It's like okay. It's like the one of the most ballyhooed albums of the 1980s was High Infidelity by REO Speedwagon. I thought it was a bunch of crap. If I hear take now
you've gone too far, Mike.
What's that?
I've gone too far. It's the first concert.
The problem with that attitude is, like, I don't really, that's fine if you don't like the music and everything, but you feel a need to broadcast, your hatred of stuff to the point where it impedes on the people who do like its ability to do that, and there's really no reason for that. Like, like if you were a stamp collector and all the rest of us collected trading cards. And I didn't understand why in this era you would be collecting stamps instead of trading cards. Like I wouldn't, have a cow about it, how ridiculous it is. And, like I just don't understand all that. Like, the fact that you would go out about why they would hype the Masters. Well, they're hyping the Masters because people are interested in watching Tiger Woods.
It's not blood pumping through my veins. It's bile and vinegar.
Yeah, it's sad. It's a little sad, Mike. I mean,
it is sad. That's why I'm just positive. You're basically a nice guy that just can't seem to. If someone else enjoys something and you don't like it,
just this on the Mickelson thing. Okay. The reason everybody is ostracizing Mickelson right now is because he called out other golfers like Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson and them going on this Saudi Arabian thing. It was a money making scam,
right?
And he looked upon it's like, okay, you're taking blood money from a bunch of really reprehensible people. And their point of view is, well, Mickelson's already made his money. Don't prevent us from making our money. Are you all a bunch of whores and you're just not going to care where that money comes from? I think he's principled.
I'm with Phil on that. I am.
Yeah, fine, me too. I am too, but it doesn't color my thinking on the other elements of the golf.
The element that I have. Yes.
There you go. Mike loves to be the fun police. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, like I said, it doesn't matter what you think. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. It's millions of people like something.
It doesn't matter what
legitimate. It's legitimate. Like I don't love. Anyway.
One other thing I do appreciate about golfers, and you see this all the time, how many of them will say, this was terrible before Tiger got here in terms of the money they made and how hard it was to do things. They all respect the impact he's had on their sport.
Sure.
And with regard to his off ice behavior, if we can call it that, to our own sport.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's taken as Eklund said, his beatings, but he's been flogged in social media and by people over his behavior. And
his legacy is tainted. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, and the way he treated his wife in that regard, the disrespect, and he's taken all that. But as an athlete, he's been incredibly fun to watch. And as Eklund said, he's been the Gretzky or in Lemieux all combined into one of his sport. Like it's really phenomenal. And I don't think he's going to bail out of this. I mean, he may not make the cut. That's entirely possible. But
if he does, Kevin, if he does, man, that's what people are going to watch, right?
That's exactly right. That's why they're hyping it. If he makes the cut, it will be, people will be glued to that. They'll do incredibly great numbers.
It'll be
If
miraculous.
he doesn't make the cut, it won't be, nearly as good as if Tiger.
If I was Tiger Woods' representative here, like his agent or whatever, I would be like, do you really want to go down like this? We can make that argument. This is a really risky thing for you to do.
Yeah.
You really look embarrassed. You can be embarrassing yourself.
I don't think you can make that argument because he's Tiger Woods. And by that, what I mean is, if I was his agent, I would say, well, Tiger, this is your call. You've earned the right to do whatever you want.
You do have to point out to him that this could.
Well, I think he understands.
Yeah.
What goes into it, and
he knows. Like in his press conference yesterday, he said, "Look, it's taking me what used to take me minutes or a little bit to get ready for a tournament takes me hours, and same to recover." Like, he knows that
he's ever been in physical therapy, and this is inspiring. I mean, it's like
he knows he may not finish this. Like he realizes that.
Yeah,
but it's inspiring that people are in physical therapy all the time, and I take my son to this place. There's people look at people who are in pain. It's inspiring that somebody can come through this.
Yeah, I will tell you this though. Back when he was in his heyday, I always felt bad for the other golfers because we were so Tiger centric, and I said, if I was the director or producer or whoever makes these decisions, like I would have gone out of my way to I would have covered every step Tiger took, but I would be constantly flipping back to make sure, because that's the one legitimate complaint that people had is that we, they were so Tiger centric that, we lost some really good golfers. And I just had discovered the sport, so I could have benefited from learning about some of the other golfers.
You discovered because of him, and it's like focus groups will tell you that they only want to hear about Tiger. They don't care.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, people wanted all the Tiger news. I mean, that's how I was. I mean, I wanted blow by blow on Tiger's shots. I didn't want to miss a single shot that he took. But
and he was just miraculous at times, like fantastic beyond. Like when he was at his best, he was. You just had to watch him do it because even if you didn't like golf, you knew no one else could do this, and it was just that was something.
Yeah. Anyway, there was one more thing, and then we'll leave this alone.
Yeah.
I'll apologize later to Mike for going at him, but the European Tour did a poll in which one of the questions was, would you rather have lunch with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson? And it was overwhelming for Tiger Woods. Yeah. And one of the guys actually wrote, I've had lunch with Phil Mickelson. and he picked, Tiger because he said I've had. and I just thought that was so telling about the and how about the fact that Mickelson is considered unlikable, or a lot of people consider him unlikable. And Tiger, with all of his transgressions, off the ice, and he's such a, the fact that he used the term game time decision, like I just love that.
Right.
It's like homage to the other sports, he kind of. I heard him being interviewed, and he kind of snickered. He said, "Yeah, it'll be a game time decision." So
that's amazing.
So anyway.
Yes, thank you guys. This is the HockeyGuzzcast.
Sorry about that.
No, we appreciate you guys talking about it, and we're sorry. We'll go. We promise we'll get to everything. Here we go. Oh, what the hell's date is it? Okay. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, April 6th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and I just can't wait to talk about that Panthers-Leafs game last night.
Yeah, me too.
I'm Russ Cohen. I don't know what it would be like to live in a world where you don't know what day it is.
It's COVID.
That's the line of the day. I'm Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Michael Dude. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you from a house that doesn't know the time of day, Mike. Not just the day of the week, but the time of day, where we don't know if it's day or night here, folks. This is that kind of place that we live in. So to know the day of the week, it seems kind of superfluous. We're living hour by hour, renewing my life insurance on a weekly basis. But let's move on.
Yeah, but no matter what time it is, you can always play pinball at X House.
I've always got Cubert right there. All right. This is the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com, the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time, wherever you are, to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And you'll know the time, and you'll know the date, because that's your job. But anyway, to those of us who don't work regular jobs, we're going to talk to you now about hockey. And here we go. Let's do it, Mike. Let's do it. Before we get into the other thing, let's talk about that Panthers-Leafs game, which is one of the more exciting, interesting games I've watched in a very long time.
Well, that's one thing you could call it. You could also You could also call it.
One, please. Time. Yes, it's not the best play. I didn't say it was the best played hockey game I've seen.
No. I'm not saying that. You could also call it a grotesque spectacle and another ridiculous collapse by a team that can't play defense. And it's like,
I agree. There's another collapse by, like, if we're at the Oilers, you would have been all over them. They need a goaltending. They need defense. I mean, I get both teams. You can't sit on a lead against the Florida Panthers. They've come back on so many teams this year. I mean, if they don't sell tickets in Florida for this, like, greatest show on ice type thing,
can I start with that? Because
I know
this is one of the best teams in the league. They are deep offensively. They are exciting. They're physical, and it's a Tuesday night in Sunrise, and there were large chunks of empty seats,
and there were tons of Leaf fans there,
and there were tons of Leaf fans, and they filled some of those seats. But honestly, it is inexcusable.
It is inexcusable. I agree, and it does make you wonder, because this. I mean, at some point, how good a team can they put on the ice if their fans aren't showing up?
No team can have more depth. They have the most depth in the league.
They've got the most depth. They've got every position covered. I mean, like you said, Mike, without
Ekblad, they're an average defense. And
without Ekblad, they are a lot like the Maple Leafs. And I do agree with you that you watch two teams that are very similar.
No. Right. Exactly.
You did without Ekblad. But then again, Ekblad is their best player. Okay. And without Matthews, the Leafs are bad too. Okay.
I think he's their best defenseman. And the way Huberdeau and Barkov are playing,
I know, but I will say that as Matthews is the most important player of the Maple Leafs, Ekblad is the most important player to the Florida Panthers. And that because of what you saw last night is the reality of the Florida Panthers without him. They need him. There's no two ways about it. Against high-scoring teams, and there's not many higher-scoring teams than the Maple Leafs. Against most teams, they can handle it. But when they get hit with the firepower that the Leafs have, they need Ekblad. When they get hit by the firepower the Lightning have, they need Ekblad.
But this is the warning sign for Florida. Going off the Leafs for a second, in Florida, going more toward Florida. This is the second time in 3 games they fell behind 5-2 to New Jersey on Saturday. They came back and won 7-6. They fell behind 5-1 to Toronto in the middle of the second period. And believe me, Toronto did everything that they possibly could to get Florida back in the game. They took a too many men on the ice penalty. They took a stupid penalty. Cloud Clifford to slash the stick out of a Florida player. A Radko Gudas scores a goal that was reminiscent of Rick Vive in the 1980s. I mean, it was unbelievable how many. But this is the thing. And okay, Toronto fans after the game were making, they got 3 out of 4 points in Florida, so they have to be happy, and they're 5-0-1 in the last 6 games. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's your 3rd game in 4 nights. You're up 5-1 in the second period. If you don't win that game, something's friggin' wrong with you.
I'm going to give you some hope in a little bit, Mike. I have something I'm going to bring out tonight that's going to give Leaf fans a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And put Panthers fans in their place a little bit.
Right, and then they get crushed when those hopes don't come, but go ahead.
No, but anyway, listen, you're right. They didn't play strong, and the fact that the Panthers are doing this, they fall behind, not good. But the reality is, to the excitement factor of that fan base, you just can't get better exciting. You can't get more exciting than this team. It's like, they fall behind, they make you like, but you sit back and you're like, they've been behind before. But when it was 5-1, I did not turn that game off last night because I said this is going to be.
Oh no lead is safe with the Leafs.
But not just the Leafs, but knowing the Panthers like I do, and knowing the Leafs, the combination of it, I'm like, this is going to still be a hockey game.
Right, but Kev, when I'm writing my blog for today, and one of the things I'm going to say is, again, does this type of game translate to the postseason? I don't see wide open offense. No, I think Florida can play. They're physical. I think they can play playoff hockey. Bobrovsky, whether he can step up and play well, that's going to be the difference between them maybe going a round or going a few rounds.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that wide open offensive hockey translates to the playoffs. It hasn't before. Everybody seemed to think there's a chance it's going to happen this year. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're going to have to prove it to me. I know people are talking about that it'll be a little bit different, but I don't think so. Like maybe it'll be different in spurts. Maybe like we could see 5 minutes of that. But at some point, everyone's going to realize that playoff hockey is always cautious hockey. You don't want to give up a goal, and I just think everybody's going to batten down the hatches, and it'll be like it was. Now, saying all that, I mean, we've seen historically that teams with great offenses, can take advantage of one tiny mistake, and after the game they'll just say, it was going to be the first mistake was going to lose, and we made it. Because the other team's good. So, but I agree with you. I don't know that suddenly we're going to see a different brand of playoff hockey.
My feeling is this: their defense is no worse than the Penguins' defense that won the Stanley Cups. Like, really, it's not. When you put Ekblad in there, it's definitely not worse than that team.
Well, when Ekblad's in there, when he's not in there, it's like not having Letang, though. I mean, that's
right. But when he's in there, I think that they're very comparable, and they're going to win games. They're going to win the games the same way that Penguins team won when they won the Stanley Cup, which is just overwhelming.
I could give a good illustration though. So last night we were in the elevator going down to the lower level from the Flyers game, and either the elevator operator or another writer was like, "Hey, did you hear what the current score is of the Leafs game?" And I was like, "Well, what was it?" Because I know they were up 5-1, and and then all of a sudden it's like it's 6-5, whatever.
Yeah.
But before that, there was a gasp, and honestly, that was every reporter saying what Mike saying what Mike says, and that the Leafs are doing it again. Like that, It is going to be near impossible for them to overcome that mentally. They could, but it's going to be hard because you have to believe it does permeate the team to some degree.
Well, but there's the thing about that. They have been better this year in a lot of ways than they have been in the past. I did a whole analytical thing yesterday about the 8 teams in the playoffs that I want to get to that I think is really interesting. All right. So the 8 teams, not including the Islanders.
Spencer Knight's an NHL goalie and shouldn't have been sent to the minors there. I just want to add that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not including the Islanders, who still have a shot, but I'm going to say they're out of it. Okay. So I'm going to go into this because I think it's really interesting.
Can you explain mathematically on a chalkboard how the Islanders have a shot?
Absolutely can, but I don't want to bore people with that, so I'm not going to. But there's no. I did it. If you read my blog from 2 days ago, Mike, I did it, and I did it. So if you want mathematically, I went into it. But all right, here's the deal. I know you love math, Russ. I saw your thing this morning. That was just my wife just cringed. I read her that.
I have a headache.
You gotta love math. All right, so here's the thing with the. I wanted to know how these teams play against each other. Like, it's easy to beat bad teams in this division. It's easy in this conference, but I want to know how these 7 teams play against each other. So that's what I went and did a study on. I went in and did a deep dive on that, how they played each other over the last 2 years, and just how they are, where they are. I'm assuming you didn't read my blog, so this will be a fun little trick. All right, so when you look at the winning percentages of the 8 teams, tell me who's in first place. All right, so you're looking at, the 8 teams that are in the playoffs. Who do you think has the best winning percentage against the other 7 teams?
Okay, so it's against the other 7 teams.
Just the other 7 teams. So, you're taking out all the bad teams. You're just taking the top 8 teams.
Well, see, that it's going to be imbalanced because Toronto played in the Canadian division. So the only teams that they played last year were Montreal and Ottawa.
Right. But they played everybody this year. Like as long as they played 3 times, if they didn't play, if they played once against somebody, then I took 2 years. I took 3 years into account.
It's not Toronto because their record against Montreal and Ottawa last year
was really good, right?
No, not against. That's
Mike. You're missing the point here. So I'm not talking about those teams. I'm only talking about the teams. These other.
Yeah, I'll say Colorado.
They didn't. Okay, what I'm saying is
no. Pause. This is between Pittsburgh, Colorado, Carolina, Rangers, Washington, Boston, Toronto, Florida, and Tampa. Those 8 teams are the only teams we're talking about.
I'm going to say it's Carolina.
Carolina's got the best record against the others. Okay.
I'd say
Tampa.
Tampa.
I'd say Pittsburgh.
Mike, who do you think?
Tampa.
Kevin, this is why you're in the Hockey Hall of Fame and we're not. The Pittsburgh Penguins have a 61% winning percentage against those other 7 teams over the last 2 years. That is something. It's higher than the second most, which is, believe it or not, Boston, who has a 59% winning percentage. Then you get to Carolina is third at 58%. Florida and Toronto are virtually the same at 57.3% and 57.2%. Florida's just 0.1% higher. Number 6 is the Rangers at 55%. Number 7, the Capitals at 50%. And number 8 is Tampa at 49.5%. Tampa has the worst record against those other 7 teams, which is interesting. And I'm like, and so it's because, Tampa
hasn't amounted to anything, but it's interesting.
Yeah, but what's the relevance? I guess I agree with Russ.
That and $5
relatives. Relevance is these are the teams you're going to play. And I also counted by the way, I included in here the playoff games that these teams have played against each other, so that they were included in this.
Well, that you can't do that.
You can include them. I'm just
trying. But I'm saying you can't do that because the playoffs and the regular season are 2 different seasons.
But Tampa won 2 Stanley Cups, and I included 2 years where they won every playoff round in this. Okay, so you're looking at, and when you look at the goal differential versus the other 7 teams, it even gets kind of weirder. All right, and in the goal differential, Carolina takes over at a +20 against those teams. Okay. Pittsburgh second, +11. Rangers +10 are third. Florida +7 fourth. Toronto -2 is fifth. Boston -5 is sixth. Washington -12 and Tampa -26. And this I checked so many times. That is insane. I mean,
it's cool, all these stats, but like every year we do our playoff predictions, and one team, goes 3-1 or 4-0 against another team, right. And then we pick that team, and then they lose in the playoffs. Like that happens regularly. So I'm not.
But also
as much as it's cool, I that these stats, I just don't know what that all means.
What this proves is that like statistics and analytics are completely meaningless because the team that finished 8th on both lists is the team that's won 2 Stanley Cups in a row.
Right.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
but they've won those Stanley Cups not by beating these other 7 teams, and that's what's interesting to me about it. Like even in the playoffs,
they beat them along the way. They just made them in the playoffs,
right? But they played. I forget what teams they played in the playoffs. So they played Washington in the playoffs last year. They played Carolina in the playoffs.
The problem is that, like, for example, Tampa Bay, they played 2 teams on the road to in the conference final and in the Stanley Cup final that are not in the playoffs this year. So their records against the Islanders and against the Montreal Canadiens is not a factor here.
Right, which is not a factor, but they're not going to play them in the playoffs this year. My point of this is that when you get down to it, like, and you're right, Kevin, every year that happens, like a team they went 0-7 the last times and then they sweep a team. I get that. But actually, it happens more often. I do this track this every year because I'm a big. You guys know I'm a big matchups person, and I track this all the time. And we always do our predictions, and I do the predictions by matchups. And the prediction by matchups, like who should win based on who won the matchups, destroys our predictions. Like it's always more right than we are. And as it does happen sometimes, I mean, I'll give you the stats. It's amazing how often certain teams versus certain teams matter. And in this conference where you have 8 teams who are all probably able to win a Stanley Cup, at least you could say 6 of them are. I think with those 8 teams all so tight, all good teams, it's going to matter who plays.
So am I supposed to correlate? Like if Tampa matches up against the Rangers, they're going to lose in the playoffs because they haven't been able to beat them in the regular season over the last 2 years enough times? I don't know what I'm supposed to get.
I mean, all I can say is this, because right now, Toronto against Boston, they're 2 so far this season. They're 2-0 against Boston. They're 2-1 against Tampa. They're 1-0-1 against Florida, and I think they're 1-1 against Carolina. And I have no confidence whatsoever that they can beat any of the 4 of them.
Right. I get
regular season record is meaningless when it comes to the playoffs because of the pressures, because of the way the type of hockey that is played, because of the more importance on goaltending and special teams. It means something in terms of getting into the playoffs, but the game is completely different.
Here's what I have found with the matchups being meaningless, Mike. Okay. The matchups. So for example, let's take the team with the most dominance of any of the other teams in this setup. Okay. I went through that. It was Carolina, okay, who has gone 4-0 against the Boston Bruins in the last 2 years and outscored them 16-1 in those 4 games. That's a pretty crazy. That's dominance. Okay, that's dominance.
They made it to a conference final.
No, but listen.
All right.
They have a playoff series, right? They play each other, and it's going to be talked about. Carolina's been destroying Boston all the time. It only matters if if Carolina wins the first game, then it gets into Boston's head. But if Boston can win the first game or one of the first two games, then the matchup doesn't matter. I agree with you. But the fact that they couldn't beat a team, if they fall down 2-0, it suddenly matters a lot. And that's what I've noticed with this thing. Like, it's like the matchups matter a lot.
I think that's more about percentages of teams when they fall down 2-0, just in normal math about coming back in a series.
But I'm talking about based on the matchups. Like if I
don't think it has to do with the matchup.
No, but I can show you situations where a team was completely like they should have lost based on
that's built by association. I think in any sport, if you fall down 2-0, you've got trouble.
No, of course
you're in trouble.
So just to give you there's 7 kind of dominating things, then we'll move on. Okay, there's 7 teams with dominance over other teams. So when you look at this is what plays out. Okay, so far. So Boston has dominated Tampa. Boston has 83% winning percentage against Tampa. Carolina has dominated Pittsburgh, 75% chance over Pittsburgh. Florida has dominated Pittsburgh, 75%. Boston has dominated Washington, 73%. Carolina has dominated Florida, and Boston has dominated Florida. So these are, to me, these are the ones that are over 70% winning percentage. Okay, those.
You're talking these are games in both regular season and playoffs
for the last 2 years.
For the last 2 years. So if I take all those favorites and bet on them, I'm going to
based on what I've seen in the past seasons. Yes, I mean, and I'll show you. You'll be amazed at the how much matchups matter in the NHL playoffs, and especially when you have teams like this. Like, we don't have a team in here that's a softie. If the Capitals are a softie, I mean, that's Ovechkin and. Are they a softie? I mean, maybe they are, but I think Boston is not a softie. I think Boston's right there with everybody else. So to me, if you have a soft team, then the matchups don't always matter in that total domination type game, but sometimes they actually do. That's what happened. For example, the best example I can bring up is the Predators sweeping the Blackhawks the year they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Predators finished in 8th, Blackhawks finished in 1st, and we were all sitting there saying the Predators have to not finish in 8th. They can't play the Blackhawks. But then when you looked at the Predators have been beaten up on the Blackhawks the last 2 years, and then they swept them in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it does happen.
Well, what had Columbus done against Tampa prior to them sweeping the?
They'd been about 500, which was surprising based on where the two teams were. It was a little bit better than you would think, right? It wasn't like a domination thing, but they have been close. And these are the things that matter. It does play into it. I'm not saying it's a given.
All right, but here's a stat for you. I'm gonna throw it back this way. Maybe you're Albert Einstein and I'm not getting it. That's fine. But the Tampa Bay Lightning haven't even lost a playoff series since Columbus in 2019. A series. Right. They haven't lost a series.
Oh, I know they haven't. No, there's no question about it. Listen, I'm not saying they're going to win this year because I don't think they will, but I'm just saying they haven't even lost a series. The team they've had the most trouble with is Florida. And you played Florida last year, and they won in 6 games.
They beat them, but I don't think they'll win this year.
But without Ekblad, obviously, it's injuries. Everything's going to play into this. It's not like it's a matter of But if all things are equal, I think these do end up mattering.
They're not going to play them until the second round at the earliest. So that they're going to play right now. Florida is almost virtually locked in to playing Washington in the first round. We've got 2 series in the East that are already almost locked up. Florida, Washington, and Rangers, Pittsburgh. It's right now. It's just a question of who Tampa Bay, Toronto, Boston, and Carolina match up against.
Like we said, Carolina and Boston are matched up right now, and Carolina has been 100% dominant over Boston over the last 2 years. So that's not a matchup that Boston necessarily wants. They don't want to sit there in that spot.
Boston wants Toronto. Boston, because then they can.
Here's the ironic thing about that, Mike, and there's where I was going to give you hope. Toronto, against the teams they're likely to play, their best record has been against Boston.
Right, but again, the ghost
regular season, I get it.
The ghost of Game 7.
Way back when, I get the ghosts. And
no.
I know Leaf fans want nothing to do with Boston.
It's not way back when. We're talking 2013 is way back when. 2018 and 2019, please.
I know, believe me.
I had a little more hair back then.
You want to play Boston.
The chat room wants you to bet on this in this vein, and I'm with the chat room. Place the bets. Let's see what happens.
We will. This year, we're going to personally go up against the matchup.
I'm still waiting for my cookies from some of the other bets. We got to talk about this because,
Kevin, any last thoughts on this? Sorry, I'm blocking you out. Kevin?
I think he's losing us.
Hey, Kev, you there? Can't hear us? Hello? Kevin?
No,
can't hear us. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. We'll come back to you. All right, Mike, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna boot Kevin from the thing and let him come back in.
Okay, come back in. There we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, interesting comments from Brendan Gallagher yesterday. After they played the Ottawa Senators. I'll just read the quote. It's not very long. Complaining about Tim Stützle and how apparently he has the reputation of being a diver. Quote from Gallagher: "When I was a kid, our coach had a rule: if you lay on the ice and we didn't have trainers, if the coach had to come on the ice and get you, you're too hurt to play. You had to sit for a minimum of 3 shifts."
Right.
Stützle is a great player. I played against him 2 or 3 years now. More than half of the games we've played against him, he's laid on the ice and he's right back out there after the next shift. He lays on the ice. He acts like he's hurt. He sells the call. He's on the ice, that same power play. There's kids watching. We're role models. If I was a teammate, I would tell him to smarten up. It's just not a good look. Very talented player, very good player. He needs to stop laying on the ice. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing? Brendan Gallagher being the one to talk about this.
Wow. No, I'll tell you, I'm split on this because I get what he's saying. Yeah. But does Brendan Gallagher go up to anybody on his team when they do it? Because every team has a guy or two that does this. Every team.
And believe me, Russ, there have been instances. I've watched Brendan Gallagher for most of his career. There have been instances when he is embellished.
No, I know Gallagher has his reputation as well.
Yes. But I'm saying every team has a couple of guys that do this, and Gallagher is one of them. I get what he's saying, but it's like, listen, this is a part of the sport. Look, we know soccer is worse. We see it in soccer, but it happens in hockey too. Like, that's up to the refs. That's up to the refs to police it.
Right, yeah. It is. And I wonder, but I do think, at the same time, it is in a playoff series or something like this will be a smart move by Gallagher. Like, the fact that they're not in the playoffs, it's just a regular season.
If it was the playoffs, it would be a good. You're right. I agree.
It would be a smart move because there's no question that even though you shouldn't say that, if you do say that, it's going to matter.
Yes.
The refs are going to look at it. They're going to keep an eye on it. I've seen this done in the playoffs a lot more often. It's weird that it's 2 teams that are not involved in anything at the end of the regular season. But
no, that's fair. Yeah. Again, this is Brendan Gallagher. Like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it is Brendan Gallagher. Very frustrated player, stuck in Montreal right now.
The chat room wanted me to talk about this so I'll mention it. Even though I was at the Flyers game, I saw that Braden Schneider hit in the Devils game on Shangarovich. I never know how to pronounce his name.
Well, it was the fight with Shangarovich.
Oh, yeah, that was the fight, right? He jumped in. I forget who it was.
On Jesper Bodequist.
Yes, that's right. On Jesper Bodequist. Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
And it was a clean hit. This is how Braden Schneider plays. He's been playing like this since junior. That's why he's in the NHL quicker than most, because he's a physical guy.
Sure.
And, if a Devils player wants to stick up for his player, that's fine. If he got the hell beat out of him, that's up to the refs to break it up again, the same way they should have broken it up sooner in a lot of other fights. I mean, we've seen fights like that lately. In Anaheim, they should have broken it up sooner with Jay Beagle, like we mentioned yesterday. So this is more on the refs. If you're a Devils fan and you're mad at Schneider or you're mad at your player getting beat up, you're really looking at this the wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's odd that it comes on the heels of what happened with Oliver Wahlstrom and PK Subban, because Wahlstrom ended up ending Jack Hughes' season. Now there's only 12 games left in a couple weeks, but apparently it was a high ankle sprain or something of that nature, and Hughes is out the rest of the year. But Wahlstrom hit him, and PK Subban jumped him, and he probably, I'm defending our best player. That's what we that's what you have to do. I mean, Schneider's just fighting his own battles. Somebody responded after he hit Boquist, and that's all fine and good. I mean,
it wasn't like he fought Boquist. Like, that's the thing.
Right.
If he fought Boquist, I understand why you would be mad as a Devils fan, because Jesper Boquist is not going to fight. But that's not what happened. He just hit him.
Yeah,
sure. I got a text from a player, by the way, who said Mike has to remember. This is an actual NHL player who's watching right now, who said Mike has to remember he's forgetting the most simplest thing about these matchups, and that is Montreal over Toronto last year, which Montreal has always given Toronto fits all the time. And then you said it at the time when you were predicting it, you're like, this could be a tough series.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I picked Montreal for the Cup, so I knew preseason, so I knew that there was something weird going on, but I also saw the opportunity. But Mike did call it right, no question.
No, I mean that was Montreal over Toronto last year was a good example of matchups mattering.
That's fair.
Yep,
Pat, can you hear us?
Yes, that was weird. My
that
audio
was weird. I thought we bored you to death, and I thought I just knocked you over. But yeah,
my audio just completely left. I couldn't hear a word you were saying.
Probably for the best.
I thought it was as simple as maybe I'd hit the mute, but there was mute. It was not the problem.
You're muting us. That's weird.
Yeah.
So any thoughts on the matchup thing, real fast, before we get out?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think all of us sort of use matchups when we make our predictions, but oftentimes it hasn't helped. I know several times I've seen a team dominate during the season, and you think, all right, well, then that'll continue, and it doesn't. So,
we'll see.
I mean, those things are always interesting, but that's why sports is so fascinating, because it doesn't always follow a logical progression.
Right. Like, I love that Carolina dominates Boston, dominates Tampa, and Tampa dominates Carolina. I love that concept.
Yeah, I do, but I mean anything when it gets in the postseason. And the other thing that you can never factor in is there's always a built-in momentum of every playoff series.
That I completely agree with.
Which it cannot easily be explained, but you win the first game, and then you start to feel good about yourself, and you see one thing that in that matchup that you feel like you can exploit, and then your confidence grows. And then the other thing too is, and we've talked about this, that I want to write a book about sports writing, and there's so much luck involved that we never ever want to acknowledge.
Exactly.
Sports writers don't want to acknowledge it. Athletes don't want to acknowledge it. But how many things, and I use this example all the time. In the opening minute of or 2 minutes of a football game, a guy muffs a punt reception, and the other team scores immediately, and they got momentum. And if you just replay that and the guy catches it, the whole game could be completely different.
It's so true.
And I remember somebody was pointing out to me, it was a player it was an Anaheim Ducks Detroit series. And a stick got knocked out of someone's hand, and the puck hit the stick that was laying on the ice and ricocheted off someone and went into the net. And he said that may have turned the series by accident, because they ended up winning that game on that goal. I don't remember the specifics of it. And he said, if we replayed that from that moment on, that series may have gone the other way.
I always thought that's a great. I always thought a great book idea, Kevin, would be to find those moments when things turned. Like, it just in like, because a couple that we've seen in our life, like I've witnessed personally. I was sitting next to Russ for one of them. Was the Vancouver Boston series in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Horton getting hit, and Horton going down and getting hurt. And we, as we sat there, and I'm sitting there, and Vancouver was dominating the series. They were up. They were going to go up 3-1. Things looked like it was going to be. They looked like they were going to be able to do it. And as we sat there, I looked at Russ and I said to Russ, I'm like, what just happened? Vancouver just made an old school original 6 team pissed off.
Yeah.
And you really saw it. Like, Boston came out and did not play like they were playing the Vancouver Canucks of the Western Hockey League. They came out and played like they were playing the New York Rangers, and they completely. It was a different series from that point on.
Yeah. Was it Aaron Rome?
Yeah, it was their own Rome thing. And we also saw it in the Flyers series, when the Flyers Penguin series one time, when the Flyers had a stupid fight. I forget who did that fight against I forget that, but that was another turning point in the series. The Flyers were dominating, and the Flyers were up like 3-0 on the Penguins, and fought. And who was it? Fought Carcillo, maybe?
It probably was Carcillo. Yeah, that's
fought somebody from the Penguins at a meaningless time, but that was just, and gave the Penguins all sorts of life. I love those kind of moments that just like happen. In the Flyers.
You mean like Nazem Kadri hitting Jake DeBrusk?
There you go. Right. And the Flyers returned from 3-0 to beat Boston in 7 games. In Game 4 of that game, remember Mike Richards getting leveled?
Yep.
Mike Richards leveling Krejci at center ice.
Yeah, he leveled
Game 4
because Krejci was out the rest of the series.
Yeah, that hit changes that game, where Boston could have won in 4 instead of. It's just, I love those moments. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Before we go, I wanted to bring up. I talked to the guys before we started a little bit. I talked to 2 guys from 2 different teams on yesterday while at the Red Wing games, and they had been out scouting. Had seen a lot of different teams, and it was interesting to get their observations. And one of the things they said is that what's been lost, and it really hasn't been lost here, only because Russ has brought it up a couple of times, about they've watched the Penguins, and they say, for so many years they've been known as an offensive team. And he said, now what I see them as a team that just competes real hard. Like
Yep.
he said, there's been a lack of consistency on a lot of teams and their ability to sustain consistent levels of pushback. And he said Pittsburgh, he had seen them multiple times, and he said, they're in every game. They push hard the same way every day. And he said, in his mind, Crosby's a big part of that. He said he really carries.
MVP look. I mean, at times,
Yeah, he carries the flag, and then he pointed out, but he says nobody pays any attention to Crosby anymore. Like he's year.
The only thing I would say, Kev, they were doing this like in camp when Crosby was out. He wasn't even in camp, so I got to I have to give the coach some credit too.
Well, maybe so, but he just made a point that he just finds it curious that there's really been no. He said Malkin is now getting more, and by attention, not from the other teams. He's talking about just the general everybody talking about. He says we're talking about Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and
that's true.
Teams and Malkin that he said is playing at a high level. But one of the other things he brought up, and much to the chagrin of Mike, he said he's seen the Edmonton play. He said they're playing very well. In his mind, they are. He said, I think they've won 12 of their last 15 or 13 out of 16 or something. Look it up. They've won a bunch of games.
Ways to win games, which is good.
Yeah, and he said,
bad news for Mike because he's the only one here who thinks that Edmonton's fallen out of it.
Well,
he's the only one.
He doesn't love their goaltending, and he said
nobody does.
Yeah, he said that's probably going to haunt them in the postseason if they do make it because it'll be different. But he said he sees them kind of getting in, and he also said beware of Vegas. He said if they get in, they could be real trouble. He said, imagine adding 3 players of the ilk of Pacioretty and Stone and Riley Smith. He said those could be the 3 best players on some teams.
No, Colorado does not want to play that series. If they get in, I mean that's going to be hard. That's going to be really hard. And
Edmonton's 11-2-1 in their last 14, and like I pointed out before we started the show, here are their next 6 games. At LA, that's going to be a big matchup. Then Colorado, at Minnesota, at Nashville, Vegas, and Dallas, and then Colorado. I predict after those 6 games, they'll be outside looking in.
I don't know. See, I don't think so. And I think
we'll see. It's a prediction.
This could take almost the entire season, but I do think it's possible the Kings fall out of it, especially without Doughty, that they start slipping a little bit. It's not that many points. And the Golden Knights actually have a game in hand on them. So
and Eck, I'll put this up on eBay so you can bid on it. So you can bid on it for your.
Is that for the Vegas Golden Knights or the Islanders? All right. So, yeah. No, I think that. Listen, I mean, it's interesting. One thing that Pittsburgh has that you can never get around is if you have a coach that just pushes and pushes and wants you to work incredibly hard and has the respect, and you have a captain that does the same thing.
Yeah, those are good things.
That's trouble.
Yeah.
Sullivan's the one who started this whole thing, and it was in camp. There's no question.
Sullivan and Crosby are on such the same page.
His 2 best players weren't in camp. Like, they just weren't.
Yeah.
And I saw this team playing like a Stanley Cup team in camp, and I was like, man. And
one of my favorite stories about Sullivan was that, I talked about on this program and Rutherford told me the thing when he had to make, I can't even remember who he traded. Maybe Mike will remember, but in the offseason, they had cap problems. They had to move a couple of guys out, and he was trying to decide what to do. And he finally made his decision, and he called and he informed Mike Sullivan, you're going to lose this guy and that guy because I got to move some guys out. And he listened for a while, and he stopped Rutherford, and he said, do I still have Crosby and Malkin? said, yeah. He says, then the rest is totally up to you, and I'm not going to say a word. You give me Crosby.
What's fascinating is Sullivan was an apostle of Tortorella.
And in fact, guys have told me that he was the worst of the 2 in terms of
that too.
Players. Yeah,
I thought that when he was a Ranger assistant. No, I'll be honest. When he was a Ranger assistant, I thought that.
I'm pretty sure that was the Kessel for Galchenyuk deal because Kessel was making almost $7 million and Galchenyuk
probably was.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true. I mean, but yeah, if Tortorella could learn what Sullivan has learned,
well, you'll find out in Philadelphia.
We might. Yeah.
Well, here's a fun thought.
Mm-hmm.
So if Blashill gets fired, which the presumption is that will happen, and historically, and Eiserman's relatively a traditionalist. A good cop is followed by a bad cop.
Correct.
So would Eiserman consider Tortorella? So
well, no, when you said
Jeez.
when you said bad cop, I thought you were saying Babcock.
No bad. Yeah, bad.
No,
cop.
that was
I don't think Eiserman would exist well with Tortorella. I just feel like
well, that's what I said when it was floated to me. And you're right on, because Tortorella will say his mind, even if it's a general manager. And what's that line from the famous Roadhouse movie? No one puts baby in the corner. No one disrespects Steve Eiserman. So
No.
But the thing is, though, you have a young and developing club. I would think you'd still need a teaching coach and not a hard ass like Tortorella. So that's why I'm thinking of Eiserman's connections to Tampa. That's why somebody like Benoit Gruel, who's the coach in Syracuse, might be a guy who would fit.
Who
I heard coming back to the NHL is Bob Hartley. I heard Bob Hartley is coming back to the NHL, and that he's leaving Avangard.
Has he gotten out of Russia yet?
He has. He told him he's done.
Okay.
Yeah, he left home. Well, the most
he will get interviewed for sure.
The most curious coaching situation apparently is what's going on with Bruce Boudreau in Vancouver, because it was only, I guess his contract had a bunch of clauses in it, and he might be a free agent at the end of this year.
Yeah, because it was a multi-year deal, though.
No, it has escape clause.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So he might be out if they don't, if Patrick Alvin and Rutherford decide they want to go in a different direction, which would be surprising because he's had a really good record since he got hired there.
He seems to like it there.
I'd be shocked if that happened. That would legitimately shock me.
He does seem to really like it there. But who would that bad? What other bad coaches are out there, Kevin? Like, who else could come in and be the bad guy?
Bad cops? Yeah, I don't know. But I do think that there's probably some truth that I know, and it really is difficult to get good information about how Eiserman feels. But I have the sense, I know enough people in Detroit that he's just really been disappointed at the compete level of this team.
Yeah.
That's why I think he's going to want someone who's going to be on him all the time.
Who was the coach before Cooper in Tampa?
It was the Boucher.
Right. Yeah, nobody wants him again.
So
yeah. All right, guys, it's all time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey, and without Goff, it is just Tiger Woods. We will talk to you later.